When you work in Microsoft Excel, from time to time you're going to realize that, you know what, I keep going to this same button over and over and over again, and it's not in a very convenient place. I need to go several tabs above the ribbon, click on that, then find my button that I want to use, but it has a drop down, and so I need to, click on a selection there, and it just makes for a lot of clicks trying to get to the button and then make some choices. You can eliminate some of those clicks and put that button in a really convenient place on your Quick Access Toolbar. Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library, and today we're going to look at Excel's Quick Access Toolbar, how you can add buttons to it several different ways, how you can use those buttons once you've added them, and how that Quick Access Toolbar, even though it's little, can be a wonderful tool when you use Excel. When you work in Excel and you create a spreadsheet, generally you are working in the cells, the rows, the columns that create that particular spreadsheet or list within Excel. And then, of course, above where you're working, you have the ribbon. And the ribbon has all sorts of buttons that help you make the information look better. They help you calculate, they help you rearrange and do all sorts of things to understand the information that you've put into that spreadsheet. Well, above the ribbon then you have the categories of the buttons or the tabs. So besides the Home tab where you do most of your work, you still have Insert and Page Layout and Formulas and Data and other tabs as well. But there are some buttons that you use over and over again in all probability, and they're not on the Home tab, so they're not all that easy to get to. The answer to getting to buttons that you use regularly is to put them on the Quick Access Toolbar. Now the Quick Access Toolbar is in the upper left above the tabs for the ribbon. And in my case, I have a really short little Quick Access Toolbar here. Yours may have a few more extra buttons depending on the version of Excel or who even set up Excel for you. So mine starts with autosave, partially because we're on a network and that's just part of how we work. And then to the right of that, I have a save button and an undo button, and then hard to see, but that's a redo button. But let's say that I have some buttons that I really like to use all the time. For example, it might be that I like to go to View, and then over on the right, I like to use freeze panes when I can. Well, the problem is I always go to View and then I click Freeze Panes, and then from Freeze Panes I also need to make a choice as well. Well, what I could do is add Freeze Panes to the Quick Access Toolbar. So I'm going to come up on the button and hover over it and then simply right click. And in this very short menu, I have Add to Quick Access Toolbar. So I can click on it, and now I have added Freeze Panes to my Quick Access Toolbar. Well, let's look at another example. Let's say that I really also like to use the Page Break Preview. And that's another one that it's just sort of annoying to need to always click several times to get to it. So what I can do is right click on Page Break Preview and then add it to the Quick Access Toolbar. Now let me go back to Home and kind of show you how that works. I'm on Home, I'm working away, and now I want to see that Page Break Preview. I simply click on that button and I'm there. Now that is so much faster than all those other clicks, isn't it? Well, let me go to View for a second and go back to normal. But you can see how that could really be a help. Another way that we can add buttons to this Quick Access Toolbar is simply come to the very last button on the right, and it says Customize Quick Access Toolbar. It has a down arrow, kind of a V really, with a horizontal line above it. And when I click on it, it gives me a list of some of the most popular things that you might want to add to the Quick Access Toolbar. So, for example, I might want to add a new file, or I want to open. I think generally I probably want to open more than anything else. So let me click on Open. And so now I have Open right on that toolbar. I could click on it and it takes me to where I can open an existing file. Well, let's do another one. Let's look and see what else we have here. So besides New and Open and Save, it would give me access to my email. Quick Print will send this directly to my default printer. The only thing is, if I need to do any adjusting of margins or page size or any of that kind of thing, it won't let me do that because it really just sends it directly to the printer. So the better option for the way I work is this Print Preview and Print. Now this is one button as opposed to going to File and Print and then looking at them both. So I can click Print Preview and Print. Now that I have that, I will click on it. And so here's my Print Preview on the right, and on the left I have all of the print settings. And it just removed one of the clicks that I'm sort of accustomed to using right now. Here is one thing that some people find kind of annoying, and that is the Quick Access Toolbar is in the upper left. Now some people really like it there, but you can move it if you would like. So let me show you how you can do that. Let's go to this last button and click on it. And we're going to come down to the very last choice, Show Below the Ribbon, and click on that. With Excel, it's sort of interesting. With Word, it's not such a surprise, but with Excel, because it is going below the ribbon, it ends up below the ribbon, but above the formula bar. So you might try this out and see if you like it. It's certainly closer to where you work than if you have to go all the way up to the top above the ribbon, but some people like this and some don't. So if you try it and decide you don't like it, you can click that Customize Quick Access Toolbar again and then come down to the bottom where it says Show Above the Ribbon. That setting simply toggles back and forth between above the ribbon and below the ribbon. Moving back to the Home tab, we do have one other way that we can add buttons and generally rearrange the Quick Access Toolbar. And there are two ways that we can get to it. We can either come over to the left to File, and then all the way down on the left here to Options, and then kind of below middle of this left-hand group, you have Quick Access Toolbar. And you can see how this lets you customize the Quick Access Toolbar. But that is a lot of steps, so here's another way that you may find a little bit easier to remember. And that is to go to the Quick Access Toolbar itself, and again go to this Customize Quick Access Toolbar button. And as we come down and look at all of the possibilities, we simply go to More Commands, the next to the last choice, and it brings us to exactly the same window. So as we look at this, first of all, we can see that Quick Access Toolbar is highlighted, and then in the upper left it says we can choose the commands from Popular Commands, or we can choose them from All Commands, or commands not in the ribbon, and there might be some of that. And so you can kind of choose how you want to select the different buttons. You may remember something from an older version of Excel. It might still exist here where it doesn't exist in the ribbon. So it's not a bad idea to even just look at all of them. And then once we decide what kind of commands we are going to use, in this case, popular commands, below that, we have a list of all of those popular commands in alphabetical order. And there are quite a few here. And so we would just want to select one of those choices. So let me come up to the top. And actually, I use borders quite a bit, so maybe that's what I do. Or, maybe center is something that you like to use quite a bit. So maybe center. Now, once you select it, you would go to Add. Now, let's look at this right-hand side where we're adding it. Here's the Customize Quick Access Toolbar. And is it for all documents or for just the one that I have right now that is open? So we'll go for all documents. And then you can see how all of those buttons that we've added are in this list. And we're simply going to click on Add in the middle and add Center to our Quick Access Toolbar. Once I've clicked Center, I can see that over on the right, I have up and down arrows. So I could move Center up or down in my Quick Access Toolbar. And in fact, I could rearrange some of these other buttons using this window and these arrows on the right. And then once I have Center in the place that I want it, then I come down to the lower right and click OK, and that brings me to the Center button now on my Quick Access Toolbar. If you decide that you no longer need a button, you can right-click on the button in the Quick Access Toolbar, and your first choice here is to remove it. And then it's gone, and then you're back to the way it was. So enjoy the Quick Access Toolbar. To learn even more, be sure to go to mymcpl.org/online learning for such great resources as Universal Class, LinkedIn Learning, Learning Express Library, and Udemy Business. We also premiere 2 new videos every Wednesday and Friday at 1 o'clock. If you miss a video premiere, you'll still be able to find it later when it's convenient for you. You can find us on Facebook at MCPL 360, and you can find us on YouTube by going to our MCPL MO channel. From there, be sure to look for our MCPL Consumer Technology Resources playlist, which contains all of our tech videos.